Hey everyone, welcome to the Bold Lawyer Show. I'm your host, JD Hoovener. I'm here at Bold Patents, and also here at Bold Patents is Matt Colson.
Hello.
Attorney. Welcome to the show, Matt. Thanks for hosting with me.
I'm always happy to be here. It's a great day.
It is a great day. I got back from Lake Chelan yesterday. It's a big lake up here, like a big glacier, super deep, very cold lake. I spent 3 days up there with the family. So
is it that pretty blue glacial water color?
Yeah. I've got a picture. I had my drone fly above it so I could get that view. It's unbelievable. It looks like an ocean kind of thing. It's got aquamarine going on.
That's super cool.
Yeah, so it's fun. So anyway, this is our lawyer show. So we're going to be talking with a guest who is patiently waiting backstage. A friend and colleague I've known for a very long time. In fact, I should probably still call her professor. So she's got lots of different titles. That's where I first met her, is when she was instructing me at Seattle University. She's a badass entrepreneur, law firm owner, and has taught me a lot of stuff. Hopefully will teach you listening a lot of things too. Matt, we're going to have her on, and then you and I can go. We've got a few questions that I've gotten over the week. But we've got our guest. So I'm going to bring Madhu on. Madhu Singh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to have you here. Thanks.
So glad to have you here. Thank you for volunteering and being vulnerable. This show is all about, it's for attorneys. Hopefully, maybe even law students are listening, at some point, right? Or there'll be those that are looking, they're in a practice and maybe thinking about hanging a shingle, right? That's what this is for. So I would love to start out with a founder story, from the heart. I want to hear what you got started with your practice. And maybe it wasn't Foundry, maybe it was another law firm you first started. So I'd love to hear about that whole story in like 2 minutes. I want to get to two other things. We've got to talk about subscription service, and then we got to talk about you moving physically. We can't get away from those. So founder story first, please go.
All right, I'll try to keep it short. It's not that long, actually. I graduated back in like 2008, 2009 timeframe. So it was the financial crisis, if you might recall, at that time. And so my now husband was already living in Seattle, and I had some opportunities here that I was coming out to join, and they got basically pulled by the time I got here. And so I just did some, I had to pass the bar and do some work for that. And I did that. I ended up joining a small law firm that I was doing contract work for, that I got connected through some alumni for. And in that position, I did some contract work, but then they turned it into like what, a lot of us lawyers are familiar with, the eat what you can kill model. And where basically you keep a percentage of clients that you generate, or you keep a percentage of what they bill on the work that you do, type thing. And so what was happening in that model is I was actually generating more business on my own than they were giving me. And so it was kind of like, why am I doing this for someone else? I saw what they were doing. It was a small law firm, and I was more of like the opinion, like, I can just do this myself. I don't need, we come out like a little bit bright-eyed in law school, like you need to have a certain set of law firm names and things associated with you. But really, if law school teaches you nothing else, it teaches you to be resourceful and how to learn the material and be able to use what you learn in research and things like that to deliver good services. So I ultimately just hung up my own shingle. And while I was a fairly new attorney, it was a little bit scary at first, as you might imagine. It actually turned out to be great, because here I am 14 years later, still doing the same thing. It was just me then. It was MK Singh Law Office, and then it kind of evolved into Foundry Law Group, where it's more of us, a group of attorneys kind of working and living the vision of a law firm that I wanted to see. I don't believe really in the eat what you can kill model. I don't like creating scenarios where we can't be collaborative as a team, and I'm not that competitive with other law firms or lawyers, because I feel like there's an abundance of things happening when you're in a city like we are here in Seattle, but even worldwide, it doesn't really matter, because everybody has their own style and flavor that they bring to the table. And doesn't mean you're the right attorney for everyone, but you might be the right attorney for someone else. And so I think that kind of perspective has really helped us set us apart and allowed us to grow the way that we have in a more collaborative environment, and an environment where we're well respected as a complementary firm, less as like, those, as a competitive firm to maybe my colleagues in town.
Right. So you were actually a rainmaker at your early firm, and you decided to head out.
Yeah.
And did you have any mentors, anyone like kicking you, like you gotta go? I mean, what made you pull the trigger and hang your shingle?
Well, when you start seeing like, because those like firms, there was a lot of them like that. I don't know. I feel like predatory is probably a strong term for it, but a lot of us have seen it where it's like they're only giving you 30%, and you not only brought in the client, you did all the work, and then like a 30% of $1,000 bill isn't much when you're starting off. It's like
You calling me a predator here? I'll
no,
volunteer. We go through it, but I do for those
it's
that are
not
really
$1,000.
Yeah.
It's not $1,000, and yours is more. And you are doing a lot of work to bring in the business. I was doing all of that part too. So that's the big difference. Like if it was a model where someone out was like you out there doing all the work, and I got to sit back and just do the legal work I like to do and get paid for it, that would be great. But I had to do both, and so that felt like this doesn't make any sense. And then he had a good vision and he had a good mission, but then he brought in other attorneys that just kind of didn't share it, and it just kind of like lost its culture and purpose, I think, where it was headed, which is fine. It's okay. It was a catalyst for me. It showed me that I could just do this myself, that I didn't need to do all these other things. And it's kind of silly to say that like around that time is when social media got started, honestly, 2010, which
man,
doesn't really date me.
You're making me feel really old here.
I know, but does that date us? I don't know, but that was only 2010, 2011 when that
a lot changed in that
took
landscape.
off. And then I became like, I really hit the ground running with that, and that's how I grew the firm. Like I was an early adopter of all those things in my law practice. I did a lot of events where I would speak about social media and law and how they intertwine and how to best practices for your business. And so I kind of built my reputation a little bit being like savvy enough to know those things that people were dealing with. And even I was always surprised that literally every event I put on, it was always sold out, and there was always a handful of attorneys there. And I was like, how am I this like junior attorney like coming in, and these guys are asking me these questions? But it was a good learning experience. And yes, I did have mentors. That's the key to all of this, is like you cannot just do that alone. You really shouldn't do any business alone. And it was mentors who were willing to support me. There was mentors I went to and said like, I need a sounding board. I'm happy to pay you for your time. Like to share with me these things, or would you be open to sharing this template with me or reviewing my template just so that I could start building a base of things? And no one ever took my money, but they appreciated the effort. And I always made an extra effort to thank them or kind of go out of my way to support them. Or if work was conflicted out or too big for me, I always referred it to them. And so like you can build a good community of like-minded attorneys like JD has done with this group, and with our with the other mastermind group he runs for lawyers. It's the same kind of thing. Like if people reach out to each other, I never say no. I always try my best to help because people were there for me and I want to be there for other people.
So I have a quick question for you, Madhu. Like, so when you came out of law school, 2008, I came out in 2011, kind of the same time period where law firms either weren't hiring, they were either pulling back offers, or you could work for them as a contractor or do doc review, right?
Right.
All terrible options. So did you focus on one certain type of practice when you were working as a contract attorney at one of these smaller firms?
Well, I had done my joint JD MBA, and like JD did, and so I was always more geared towards business law. My dad is a small business owner, and so that was always kind of my passion, was on that side of things. And so I picked specifically transactional work because I did not want to get caught up involved in litigation. I also didn't want to do any personal consumer focused work like bankruptcy, personal injury, estate planning, and having that kind of really focus on the corporate transactional side is what helped kind of catalyze in that direction. And I did all those things like while I was doing bar prep, waiting for bar results.
Yep.
Review, did some contract work here and there. Offers got pulled, like all those things you just listed, like was happening during that time. And it stretched for a while to 2011, 2012 even. So.
Very cool. Hey, JD, quick thing. You'll have to forgive me. Like, I know this is a podcast, but we're on video right now, and there's a peacock running around in the background.
I saw something moving back there. I thought it was
that's my buddy Kabir, and he's my peacock, and he's outside. He thinks he's a chicken, and he's very loud because love is in the air right now.
Nice.
When you said that, we just got a heart. I don't know if that was anybody you know, like your wife, my wife, or maybe Madhu's family. Okay, anyway, we got a heart out there for that.
Right on.
Solid.
For those that are on the podcast, we love you. If you want to go check out the video, you can go to the Bold Patents YouTube channel. Please hop on there. Okay, Madhu, we've been waiting for this. This is the title of our segment today. Building a practice with a subscription service. That doesn't even sound like something a lawyer should be doing. It's like, I have a subscription service to a magazine, to YouTube TV, but to a lawyer? I mean, how did you even come up with this?
So I'm glad you asked, because I get that kind of pushback all the time from other lawyers, but it's really about what I was looking to do is building a scalable model with predictable revenue. And so I got a bit of this idea from other consulting firms, and I wanted to model how they did it, because they would set up these long engagements with companies and like have this sequence of work. And they would often do like a retainer, and sometimes they would do a subscription where they would be like available. And so I was just I got a little bit inspired by that and wanted to try it out myself,
like
because
business consultants, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Business consultants. And people are so used to the retainer model, and retainer model for lawyers is nothing but a glorified deposit. And it's just like a glorified term for a deposit against hours and time worked. And what that was doing was in my mind, creating a world where the only way a lawyer could scale that, or to take the value of what every year of experience means, is to increase their hourly rate. So at some point that pushes lawyers to increase their hourly rate to like $1,500. I don't know, something crazy, because they're like, well, that 5 minutes is now worth a lot more because I know all this about your business. I've been doing this for longer. And therefore it's justified that you would pay this larger rate for this shorter period of time, or 1 hour, whatever it is. And so to me, that was not really capturing the value of what I was delivering with my clients, where the value was, we had a relationship. They wanted to work with someone who knew what their business was, who understand what they were trying to do, who could look out for them, who understood that when they were negotiating contracts, what the key things that they wanted to have included are, what the things they didn't usually want to do, things like this. Someone who really understood. So that was like, how do I capture that value? Well, the way I capture that value was the subscription system. So the subscription is a 1-year program. You pay X number of dollars a quarter, and you have this access that we're there when you need us. I realize that it can get a little out of control, but at the end of the day, the real value is like, to them, it doesn't matter if it takes me 5 minutes or 5 hours. The work is getting done. But for me, there's an ebb and flow, because there'll be some month where there's a lot of work, and then there'll be some month where there's like nothing going on. And so that's totally fine. But for me, the revenue is the same. The cash flow is coming in, and it does not matter that I had a busier month than the other busier. So like right now, I might not be the busiest this week, but we're in a different model. I'd be like, oh shit, do we have enough clients coming in? Do we have enough going on? But like, whereas now I'm like, well, even if no new client comes in this week, we're still going to get X dollars every quarter because of this model. And that has allowed me to scale it by adding capacity for their staff to do stuff, and then finding the right price point. And then there are people who, they know that they're going overboard, and we just level up. And then there's some people where like, we just doesn't make any sense to continue, and we level down, or they cancel and they go back to hourly, but it's designed to be moving away from just like increasing hourly rates. When in theory, I could be charging the same hourly rate. You wouldn't know. But on my end, to them, it's just a fixed rate. Like, we have this, and this is just part of our yearly budget type thing.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Hearing you explain it like that, probably for the 5th time, things are clicking. Like, this whole idea of cash flow stability makes me think of, oh, wow, maybe you could actually be comfortable hiring someone on salary, right? Yeah. You could actually hire people. Really.
What I have, because exactly. And so I made sure, I was like, if I hire these people, what is the full salary for their year? And I want to have enough subscriptions out there that covers everyone's salary, first and foremost. So then I have everyone covered. And then after that,
that's a big nut.
After that, it's gravy from there. Like, I've got everybody's payroll covered for the year. I don't need to stress about it. We could focus on being collaborative, working on these things, and adjusting from there. The other thing about the package that people like is they don't feel like they're being nickeled and dimed for just asking a question here or there. And they also don't feel like they're disrespecting me by not paying for that time when they realize that's your time that you're putting in, they feel like, oh, it's included in my package. Because I'll have clients who are like, oh, just bill me for this time you gave me this advice. I'm like, that was like a 3-minute email I wrote. Like, I'm not going to go do that. And so I'm actually capturing more billed time doing it this way because to them it's covered. And there's this like, it comes back to the value of our relationship where there's this natural ebb and flow in business that I'm capturing in this way. And they're not feeling the pinch of it. So
do you think that I mean, I don't know if you can remember back, before you had subscription model, maybe there's a client that actually transferred over with you. My guess is that they're actually probably reaching out to you more often because they know that they're paying. Is that true? Or are they actually reaching out just as much as they always did?
Maybe more often, maybe less. Or the ideal example is one client who's one of my very early on subscriptions, grew with me. His business started growing. He leveled up to probably like one of the higher levels because he just had a lot of more activity. And then when it came time for an exit, his investment banker was like, "Oh, you need like another M&A attorney." I was like, "We do the acquisitions too." And they ended up realizing that it was, even though he was being pushed the other way, he's like, "No, I want Madhu to do this deal because she has been in my entire history. I don't have to start over with anyone. She knows why all the contracts are the way they are, how they all got negotiated, because I did all of that for 10 years for him. And then he sold it. And then the company that bought him was like, will you stay on and keep working with us because you have all this history?
Wow.
For at least 6 months while we move this over to our in-house team. And I was like, okay, this is great. Like, that's the model story, is like, we are working with your business with, like, you possibly will have an exit strategy in mind. And so we're mindful of the diligence that'll come up, mindful of like how some of these things should play out. And if we're with you, and even if you decide to work with another firm, because there's some deals that are just too big for us, we just don't have the capacity to take them. I still am like the person that firm is very happy to work with as the general counsel because they can just get a lot of answers quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lay on us some of the fees. What are some, like, let's say the lowest subscription fee for the little baby startup? What would we be paying per quarter?
It's $8,000 to $10,000 a year. So so last year we have settled on it being, some people need to move up from 8,000. I don't really like that package anymore because it doesn't quite always make sense, because oftentimes another value add of that package is, so it's a little bit of finding the right price point. So I think 10,000 a year is the kind of the ideal. 2,500 a quarter. You have access to your counsel, and then if they're like, oh, do you have a template for X? Yes, there's some boundaries to it. Like, I put in an X number of contract reviews, X number of drafting, maybe some trademark research.
There we go.
There's like a variety of things that are included. Then big on what's not included, so that we're clear on that too. The things that are not included are usually financing, diligence, acquisition work, litigation support, that type of thing, where it just doesn't make sense to fit in there. And then it goes from there up to 60,000 a year. And so that's like.
So do you also like cap the hours, associated with that quarter? I mean, are you like that covers like 20 hours of attorney time?
No, because that comes back to a retainer, because then the assumption is those hours roll over. No, I track the hours because I want to make sure we're getting covered, but there's no reason I will tell you the hours spent each quarter.
Got it. Okay.
Because some people have asked me, and I'm like, I don't know what this will do for you, because the point of the package is that you have these projects and these asks handled. It does not matter to you how long it takes.
Use it or lose it kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's basically like you're almost like on the flat fee model, but it's subscription based, right? So that's cool. I like that.
So like these price points vary because it's over time. My very first package was $3,000 a year. Okay. So like it's very much kind of got where I tested it out. And then I realized there was like a little bit more value. Then there was a bigger team and there was more things I was included. And the $60,000 number came from, it's just the right price point for certain startups where after that, it makes sense for them to maybe hire in-house. And whereas before
60,000.
Yeah. So I actually worked on this with one of my clients, their CFO, and they're like, look, for us to hire in-house, it's going to cost the whatever going rate for a lawyer is, plus an extra 30, 40,000 with all of our benefits and onboarding. Whereas we would rather pay you hire someone that's dedicated to our team and we will guarantee this payment. And that's how we landed on there. Because anything more than that, they would have to weigh whether it made more sense to hire someone in-house. But then if they did, then they ran into the conundrum, like, who's going to train that person? Well, Madhu, we'll have to pay you to train that person. We don't even know what you're doing all this.
Then they'll join your firm, and then it's a wash. Okay.
So, but then he told me, he's like, I'd rather you find somebody that join your firm and you take up the rest of their salary. We'll guarantee part of it. And that's how we did it. But that's how I got to that number, because with their inputs. But that's why I said this is very value client relationship focused. Like, they actually gave me input on how we ended up on this rate that worked out for everybody.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the times that you get burned. So someone said, I'm going right to it.
Yeah,
so
how do we lose money on this?
$2,500 per quarter. Like, if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm gonna use it, right? So like, I'm calling you maybe once or twice a week, and I'm wanting calls. I've gotten lots of contracts. I'm right up on the max. So at the end of that third month, or how do you react to, like, okay, we need to bump you up? How does that conversation go? How do you know when to have that conversation?
So part of this is I don't let people sign up for it at the get-go. We have to do a project or two together. And if those projects are successful, I get a sense of their style. They get a sense of my style. And only then do I introduce it or allow them to join it, because and if they want to join it, I'll tell them, like, look, if you want to join this, we're going to do these 2 projects first. This is what's going to cost. And if you decide to join the package, I'll credit you on the package. But we have to get to know each other and our working styles first. There's only one time where I did that, where I didn't follow my normal. And I just kind of felt a little pressured into it because there was another attorney involved and the client was a little bit high profile. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. But I told them, look, if after 6 months you're overdoing it, we're going to bump this up and make up for this. And they're like, okay, that's fine. So I was like, okay. So we're about to have that conversation because they are overdue. I already primed them. I was like, this is what we discussed and this is what it's turned out to. And they're like, okay, just bump us up to whatever. So because the reason it's easy to have that conversation is they've already been experiencing the value. And I'm not bumping them like $20,000. They're looking at a bump up of like $5,000 or $10,000, and they could factor that in quarterly. When you split it up quarterly, the thing that never worked really created friction was monthly payments. And I don't know why. I think the monthly payments came too quickly, where you felt like, wait, did I even call my lawyer this month? And they're like, no. But if it was quarterly, they're like, oh yeah, I definitely talked to her this quarter multiple times, or they might have been all in the same week. But when you reflect on it, it was all that quarter.
Right. I love that. So quarterly.
Quarterly is key to the success of this.
Oh my gosh. Huge golden nugget just dropped for all those out there.
I would be like tracking down their credit card, debit card numbers every 3 months, because we keep our clients cards on files, and man, if those things don't change like every other month.
Yeah. So the quarterly is, I don't know what it is, but quarterly is what works.
Okay. That's super cool. I love that for you. I think that's a really cool system. I was going to say, like, how have you been burned in that? But it sounds like, the closest you've come to it, you've just bumped the client up to the next level, which is great.
Well, hold on. So I have one more. I got to cut one more. So when you sign them on, isn't it a yearly agreement, for 10 grand? You have some caveats where, hey, things are subject to change every quarter kind of thing.
Well, I just tell them, like, this is what we're going to start off at. But if we feel like if I feel like the workflow is more, I'm going to tell you, but you will also know that the workflow is more than what we had talked about, because you told me it was going to be X. And then let's say by second quarter in, I don't know, let's say you, all of a sudden your company's blowing up and you have customers everywhere and you're like inundating us with requests. We're going to talk about it. And if you want to cancel early, you have to pay the equivalent of 1 quarter. So there is a way to get out of it.
Got it. Do you internally then track on your team, the amount of time you're spending on a per client, basis, so that you can judge that?
That's what I've been trying to solve. Well, I know generally what we're spending. I'm trying to get a better handle of that. That's always a tricky internal part, because it's so easy to be like, oh, they're a package. Let's just go, who's going to write it down type thing. We invested in Clio this year.
Yes.
Because of everyone's inputs from the mastermind group, but I hate it. And since I logged in the first time, I am not logged in a single time since then. I cannot handle the user interface to save my life.
I got a tip for you. So I hate Clio Manage. Clio Grow, though, is like where it is at from like a client project management standpoint.
Okay, well, that's good to hear, but I'm done. I'm giving up on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use Clio Manage either. So.
I'm just like, everybody else is using it, so everybody's tracking it, and I see that, and that's wonderful. But
that's good.
I, as a person, cannot get onto it. But I've learned a lot about what's really working for people, and so when this subscription is done, here soon, we're gonna move away from that again.
Okay, speaking of moving, good transition here. We have 4 minutes left in the show. So you are physically, personally planning a move, right? You've got a family. Tell us about what that has made you think about. Has it impacted your firm? And what do you hope?
Well, yeah, I'm physically moving for like the benefit of my family too. But I am concerned about the impact on the firm because, people may or may not. The thing is, it's hard to know because post-pandemic, I don't know that anyone would even know where I was. And honestly, and even post-pandemic, nobody really wants to meet in person. And if they do, fine, that could be coordinated. But really, there's not a lot of things. I don't know that anyone would really actually know that I'm not here per se. The time change will be a little tricky, but I will actually, be on the earlier end. So things are manageable. I'm a little bit more worried about being available for the team. And so I've been trying to spend a lot more time with them and just putting some processes, but it's forcing us to put processes in place and really like think about how we're operationalizing things. But I also see this as a new opportunity in another market. Kansas City has its own little like bubbling market. That's where I'm from, and that's where my network is. In fact, I have a call next week about an adjunct faculty position, like my usual, like that's how I get in and and then I did it in Spokane. We set up a guy there. I went and did my 3-4 things there, and he's off and running, making connections and doing great.
I think you'll love working from the Midwest, honestly. Like,
you're a little biased, though, aren't you?
Well, I'm in Minnesota, right? But the way that I pitch it to clients, who are on the West Coast or East Coast or whatever, is that like, hey, like, I can work from anywhere and do this federal trademark law thing for you, and I can do it a lot cheaper probably than someone in Manhattan can, right? And then just your living expenses are a lot less expensive here too. So that money you make goes a lot further than it did in Seattle.
But the thing is, that's what I'm saying, but Foundry will still be in Seattle. It will still be considered a Washington-based law firm. My partner is here. Our physical office is here. So that's something I don't really know that anyone would really know that I'm not here unless I told them.
Right. Oh, so you do have like a physical, location that you rent.
Yeah. And so like our operations manager is working out of there and will manage that as our physical location. And
they have a physical office. They've got an office.
Yeah, you got overhead.
Overhead.
So I have a quick question for you about this, right? So like my wife keeps threatening to move our family to Hawaii, which sounds, terrible, right?
Yeah.
Have you looked into what it takes if you're working remote, like say you move to Kansas, right? And you're working remote in your law firms in Washington State. Do you have to be dual licensed in Kansas, or can you continue to work as long as you just advertise on the West Coast and service those clients? How does that work with the
the type of work that I do does not require you to be licensed per se, because it's just corporate transactional work. You need more of a license if you're doing litigation and things like that. I think that it would, I don't know that I'll get it right away, but at this point I would waive in. And so it would be like a non-issue to get a Kansas license. Other places, like, for example, I think California and New York, you cannot waive in. So you have to like really think about that mindfully of applying and getting into that process. But other places, and then because we do work with a lot of startup and tech companies, they're oftentimes trying to, like, the state relationship is usually tied to some sort of incorporation. And those companies, whether or not even if they're in Washington, they're trying to register most of the time in Delaware.
Sure,
and so we're like doing it there and then registering them to do business in Washington. It would be effectively the same thing if they were based out of Kansas or Kansas City, Missouri. And so like, I don't see why that would change. I think it would help to have it because I'd be able to like share that as a qualification, but I don't know that it'll make too much of a difference. But like people that I went to, a lot of people I went to law school with, they're doing things, and there's a little like started like you guys might have heard of like Alt Legal, for example. They like chose Kansas City as their headquarter, right? I know those guys. I know Nahal from when he early started the practice, and all these things, just like little things are happening there, but they don't have an attorney that's necessarily doing what I'm doing. The attorneys who are doing any sort of startup work are at the big law firms. And so I feel like I could carve out something for myself there. And with that, I probably will get the license just to back it up.
Cool.
But to your point, your trademark practice, it should not matter at all where you are.
No,
it's all federal based. You're not even doing like here. I'm still like, we do a little bit of trademark, but not enough to call it a formal practice. It's more like this incorporation piece is the piece that'll get a little tricky, like me getting more familiar with what it's like there. But at the end of the day, I'm probably going to be helping those people incorporate in Delaware like I do here, and going from there.
We are at the end of our half hour. Madhu, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us your subscription service.
Yeah.
Your law firm. That's really cool. I learned more even from hearing it again. I'm going to see you on Friday. I'm lucky to be a part of your mastermind. We invited Matt, this guy that I knew a little bit. Hopefully you can show up, Matt, to the mastermind.
You should. It's great.
I think I will.
Yeah.
Madhu, is it okay if I give out your email address to this public audience here? If they want to reach out?
Yeah, good. And then if anybody wants to talk subscription, I've talked with a lot of lawyers about it, honestly. And a lot of the questions you're having is what is keeping them from doing it. Despite my answers to everything, it just feels like, how do you fully get all your time things? And there's a bit of risk in all of this in any sort of business, right? But the reward is high for me in that I have this cash flow for the year figured out before I even have the work in hand, and so it is something to really consider. And I really feel like the future of law firms need to like adjust for some of these models. And that's why fixed fees work really well for both of your practice areas, because it's like people just want something predictable. And it's just taking that to like another layer, which it doesn't make sense necessarily for you guys to do what I'm doing, because you guys do these tangible projects. But you can see where, like, in a world where you're doing a little bit more general counsel, where this could be useful.
Awesome. Madhu, thank you for being a bold lawyer and for sharing with us your founder story and all this. We're going to have you on again. But for Bold Patents and for Foundry Law, we'll wish you guys a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.